Okay, so today we're diving into something we all kind of rely on, but probably don't think about that much, daily routines.
Yeah, they're those patterns you go through every day, from like waking up all the way to going to sleep.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be taking a look at what Jennifer and Daniel from the English Leap podcast had to say about their routines.
Exactly. They talked about how their routines are structured and why they even bother with them in the first place.
So our goal here is to kind of pick apart their experiences and see if there are any valuable insights that our listeners can maybe apply to their own lives.
Right, because they both talked a lot about how their routines help them feel more balanced and in control.
So shall we jump right in?
Let's do it.
All right, so we'll start with the morning, because that's where most people's days begin, right?
Makes sense.
So Jennifer said that she usually wakes up around 7:40 a.m.
Got it.
And she does something kind of interesting right away.
What's that?
So before she even gets out of bed, she takes a few minutes to stretch and just breathe.
Huh. I wonder why she does that.
Well, she didn't say exactly, but I was thinking maybe it's a way to kind of gently wake up her body and mind.
Yeah, maybe it's like a signal to her system to transition from sleep to being awake.
And I was also thinking maybe it has something to do with cortisol levels.
Oh yeah, cortisol is that stress hormone, right?
Right. And it's usually higher in the morning, so maybe stretching helps to lower it a bit.
That's a good point, because if you wake up and immediately start stressing about the day, your cortisol levels are just going to spike even more.
Exactly. So Jennifer's approach seems to be more about starting the day in a relaxed and calm state.
It's a smart strategy.
Now, Daniel, on the other hand, he wakes up a bit earlier, around 6:30 a.m.
Okay, why is that?
Well, he has to start work early, so he needs that extra time in the morning.
Makes sense.
And the first thing he does is drink a glass of water.
Oh, interesting. So his focus is on hydration.
Yeah, it seems like he wants to make sure his body is properly hydrated after a night of sleep.
Yeah, that's important, because even mild dehydration can affect your energy levels and make it harder to focus.
Right. So Daniel's starting his day by addressing a basic physical need.
It's like laying the foundation for a good day.
Now, both Jennifer and Daniel also mentioned that they brush their teeth and wash their faces as part of their morning routines.
Of course, that's pretty standard for most people.
Yeah, it's like a universal signal to start the day fresh.
Right, like wiping the slate clean.
Now let's talk about breakfast.
Okay, so what do they usually eat?
Well, Jennifer said that she prefers a light breakfast, like oatmeal or toast.
Interesting. So she's not a big breakfast person.
Yeah, it seems like she wants to eat something to give her energy, but doesn't want to feel weighed down.
I can relate to that. A heavy breakfast can sometimes make me feel sluggish.
Right. And she also mentioned that she wants to avoid that mid-morning energy crash that can happen if you eat a lot of processed foods.
That makes sense. So she's choosing foods that will provide sustained energy throughout the morning.
Exactly. Now, Daniel, on the other hand, tends to have a bit more substantial breakfast.
Oh, really? What does he usually eat?
He said he often has eggs with toast or a smoothie.
That definitely sounds more filling than Jennifer's breakfast.
Yeah, I think it probably reflects their individual needs and preferences. Some people just need a bigger breakfast to feel energized.
That's true. Everyone's different.
But what's interesting is that both Jennifer and Daniel make a point of getting organized for the day after breakfast.
What do they do to get organized?
Well, Jennifer checks her emails and reviews her to-do list.
Okay, so she's getting a handle on what needs to be done that day.
Exactly. And Daniel, he looks at his class schedule.
So they're both kind of mentally preparing for the day ahead.
Yeah, it's like they're creating a roadmap so they don't feel overwhelmed later on.
Makes sense.
And while Jennifer and Daniel were talking about their mornings, their language expert, Crystal, chimed in to explain some of the key vocabulary.
Oh, that's helpful. I'm sure some listeners might not be familiar with all the words.
Right. So, for example, Crystal explained that stretch means to extend your body or limbs to loosen up your muscles.
Ah, so that's what Jennifer was doing before she got out of bed.
Exactly. And then Crystal talked about hydrate, which simply means to give your body water.
Which is Daniel's priority first thing in the morning.
Right. And then there's light breakfast, which Jennifer uses to describe her small, simple morning meal.
And lastly, Crystal explained to-do list, which is just a list of tasks that you need to complete.
Exactly. So even though Jennifer and Daniel have slightly different morning routines, they both seem to have the same goal.
What's that?
To start the day feeling alert and organized.
It's not so much about the specific actions, but the overall intention.
Yeah, I think that's a really important takeaway.
Definitely.
All right, so now let's move on to the afternoon.
Okay, so what do their afternoons typically look like?
Well, for Jennifer, the afternoon is when she really focuses on her classes or her study sessions.
She's a student, right?
Yeah, and she said that she likes to break down her tasks into smaller chunks and take short breaks to stretch and move around.
It's a good idea. It's easy to get mentally fatigued if you sit in one place for too long.
Exactly, and she finds that those short breaks help her to stay sharp and focused.
They're like little mental refreshers.
Right now, Daniel's afternoons tend to be very busy with meetings and project work.
So he's probably got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, he's a busy guy, but he also makes a point of taking breaks, even if they're just for a few minutes.
What does he do during his breaks?
He said he might just stretch or grab a quick snack to recharge.
So even though his work is demanding, he still recognizes the importance of taking breaks.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting that both Jennifer and Daniel are so proactive about managing their energy levels.
Yeah, it's not like they wait until they're completely exhausted before they take a break.
Right. They're intentionally building these breaks into their schedules.
Which makes a lot of sense if you want to avoid burnout.
Now, Jennifer also mentioned that after her light lunch, she likes to take a moment to regroup before tackling her afternoon tasks.
What does she mean by regroup?
I think it's kind of like a mental reset. You know, she's giving herself a chance to clear her head and prepare for the next part of the day.
It's like a transition point between the morning and the afternoon.
Exactly. And speaking of lunch, both Jennifer and Daniel make a conscious effort to choose lighter options.
Oh, why is that?
Well, Jennifer said that she prefers a salad or a sandwich because she doesn't want to feel sluggish after eating.
I get that a heavy lunch can definitely make you feel sleepy.
Right. And Daniel usually eats around noon, and he also goes for something light and healthy, like a quinoa salad with veggies or a turkey sandwich.
So they're both trying to avoid that classic mid-afternoon energy slump.
Exactly. They're really in tune with how their food choices impact their energy levels and productivity.
Fueling their bodies strategically.
Yeah, it's not just about satisfying their hunger. It's about eating in a way that supports their afternoon work.
Makes sense.
And then after lunch, they both get down to business.
What do they focus on?
Well, Jennifer likes to tackle her bigger assignments while she still has good energy levels.
Okay, so she's prioritizing the most challenging tasks for when she's feeling her best.
Exactly, and Daniel focuses on his key projects after lunch, aiming to knock them out while he's still feeling productive.
Knock them out, is that like a slang term?
Yeah, Crystal explained that it just means to complete tasks efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Crystal also defined sluggish, which Jennifer used to describe that feeling of being slow and lacking energy.
Which they're both trying to avoid with their light lunch choices.
Exactly, it's all connected, right?
Absolutely. Their afternoon routines are all about being intentional with their time and energy and making sure they're supporting their productivity through breaks and food choices.
Okay, so now let's shift gears and talk about their evening routines.
Sounds good. How do they wind down after a long day?
Well, Jennifer said that she likes to unwind and relax after her classes.
Okay, what does she do to relax?
She often takes a short walk or does some light stretching after dinner.
So she's incorporating some physical activity into her evening routine.
Yeah, and she specifically mentioned that these activities help her to de-stress.
It's like she's releasing all the tension from the day.
Exactly. Now, Daniel also prioritizes relaxation after work.
What does he do?
He said he might listen to music or go for a walk.
So similar to Jennifer in a way.
Yeah, they both seem to find that moving their bodies helps them to unwind.
Movement can be very therapeutic.
Now, for dinner, both Jennifer and Daniel keep things pretty simple.
What do they usually eat?
Well, Jennifer said she might have pasta with vegetables or a rice bowl.
Okay, so nothing too elaborate.
Yeah, and Daniel usually eats around 7.0 b.m., and he also likes to keep it simple with something like grilled salmon with veggies or a stir-fry.
It seems like they both prefer quick and easy meals in the evening.
Yeah, maybe they're saving their culinary energy for other times of the day.
Or maybe they just want to keep things low-key after a long day.
That's a good point. Now, something else that both Jennifer and Daniel do in the evenings is brush their teeth and wash their faces.
Of course, that's part of most people's bedtime routine.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting how they frame it.
What do you mean?
Well, Jennifer said that it helps her to feel refreshed and ready for bed, like it signals that the day is truly over.
I see. It's like a symbolic act.
And Daniel used a really cool metaphor. He said it's like pressing a reset button after a long day.
I love that it's like you're wiping the slate clean and preparing for a fresh start.
Right now, after they've freshened up, Jennifer likes to wind down with a book or a cup of herbal tea.
Herbal tea as in caffeine-free.
Right? Crystal clarified that for us.
Good, because caffeine before bed is not a recipe for good sleep.
Definitely. And Daniel also makes a point of avoiding screens before bed.
What does he do instead?
He said he might read or listen to music.
So they're both choosing calming activities that don't involve screens.
Yeah, it's all about preparing for a good night's sleep.
And speaking of sleep, they both have pretty consistent bedtimes.
Jennifer aims to be in bed by 10:00 p.m., and Daniel tries to go to sleep around 10:30 p.m.
They're definitely prioritizing sleep, which is so important for overall well-being.
Right, and I think it's interesting how they both recognize that their evening routines have a direct impact on how they feel the next day.
It's all connected.
So Crystal also broke down some of the key vocabulary for the evening routine.
Okay, what were some of the words?
Well, she explained that unwind and wind down are pretty much the same thing. They both mean to relax and let go of stress.
Which is what Jennifer and Daniel are both doing in the evenings.
And then she talked about the reset button, which Daniel used to describe brushing his teeth and washing his face.
It's such a powerful image. It really captures the feeling of transitioning from the day to the night.
Yeah, I think it's a great reminder that even small actions can have a big impact on our mindset.
Definitely.
So overall, I think we can see that Jennifer and Daniel's evening routines are all about preparing for restful sleep, which sets them up for success the next day.
It's like they're investing in their future selves.
All right, so now that we've taken this deep dive into Jennifer and Daniel's routines, what are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest one is that while their routines are tailored to their individual needs and schedules, they both follow the same basic principles.
What do you mean?
Well, they both emphasize the importance of structure, balance, and control.
How so?
Well, their routines provide a framework for their day, which helps them to feel more organized and in control.
Right, it's like having a plan so you're not just reacting to whatever comes up.
Exactly. And they also make sure to build in time for relaxation and self-care, which helps them to stay balanced.
Yeah, it's not all about work, work, work.
And perhaps most importantly, their routines give them a sense of agency over their time.
What do you mean by that?
Well, instead of just letting their days happen to them, they're consciously shaping their days.
Ah, I see. So they're not just going through the motions.
Right, they're making deliberate choices about how they want to spend their time and energy.
And it's not about being rigid or inflexible either.
Definitely. Jennifer and Daniel both stress that their routines are adaptable. They adjust them as needed.
Yeah, life happens, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about finding a framework that works for you and then being willing to tweak it as needed.
And I think it's also important to point out that Jennifer and Daniel aren't just blindly following these routines. They're very mindful of the choices they're making.
What do you mean?
Well, they're both very aware of how their actions impact their energy levels, their focus, and their overall well-being.
Right, like their choices around food and breaks.
Exactly. They're not just eating whatever's convenient or working until they drop.
They're being strategic and intentional.
And I think the vocabulary that Crystal explained really helps to highlight this.
How so?
Well, when we understand the meanings behind words like sluggish or unwind, it helps us to appreciate the intentions behind the actions.
Right. It's not just about it's about the why.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important distinction.
Definitely.
So building a routine isn't just about being more productive, although that can be a nice side effect.
It's about creating a life that feels good and supports your overall well-being.
Right. It's about prioritizing your physical, mental, and emotional health.
And it's about making sure you have time for the things that matter most to you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway is that daily routines can be incredibly powerful tools for creating a more balanced, fulfilling, and intentional life.
And they don't have to be complicated or overwhelming.
Right. Even small changes can make a big difference.
So I'd encourage our listeners to think about one small intentional habit they could incorporate into their own day.
Maybe it's something as simple as taking a few minutes to stretch in the morning.
Or setting aside some time for relaxation in the evening.
Or maybe it's something completely different.
The key is to find what works for you.
And to remember that you're in control of your day.
So take some time to reflect on what you want your daily routine to look like.
And start building a life that feels good from the inside out.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.